Guys, it is Friday lunchtime. We are now on day 2 of the general election campaign. Things have now moved on from Rishi Sunak being stuck in the rain, out on the podium, the visage, the drowned rat stuff. We've now moved on to calling Keir Starmer a coward for refusing to debate Rishi Sunak, even though A, he debates him every week, every Wednesday at 12 o'clock. And perhaps more ridiculously, there will be prime ministerial debates. They are going to debate. So that's the level of credibility and integrity that we're currently seeing. Now, a lot of you will be thinking, this is really a competition between Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak, but you are forgetting there are other bit part supporting cast members involved in all this. One of those is a fella called Richard Tice, who is heading up the Reform Party. Let's have a look at what he has to say.
Greater waiting list, the greatest ever. Why? Because of the huge extra pressure, because the Tories have betrayed Britain on mass immigration.
Oh man, he's just insufferable, isn't he? I can't look at Richard Tice and not think of the guy that sells the monorails on The Simpsons. Yeah, join us for Brexit. Don't worry about net zero. We need to leave the ECHR. Just this suite of over-promising and simplification and populism.
Greater waiting list, the greatest ever. Why? Because of the huge extra pressure, because the Tories have betrayed Britain on mass immigration.
Do you think he actually thinks that is the reason that public services are struggling? Do we actually think that he believes that? Is that there's too many people, too many foreigners, guys, too many immigrants coming in, and our public services and infrastructure, they just can't handle it?
On mass immigration.
Or do we think maybe it could be corporations and billionaires not paying their fair share? Because I know I've said this before, but we're picking up new listeners and viewers all the time, so it bears repeating, right? If you have 20 people living in a little village and they all pay a certain amount of tax, and that facilitates a little doctor's surgery, right? And the water running and, the basic facilities to support that population. If you then get another 20 people in and they all start working, that money is taxed and then the facilities should grow. But if then the facilities are not able to grow along in line with the population, then that means somebody somewhere is avoiding tax, or the facilities were sold off and privatised and somebody's pulling money out of them. So either it's tax dodging or privatisation that is at fault for these public services, Dickie. Let it swirl around your mind for a little minute.
The waiting list could be just as much to do with the fact we've got an ageing population and a sicker population.
It's all to do with
migrants tend to be pretty young.
It's a serious contributor.
I love what's happened here, right? So he says immigrants are putting pressure on public services, on the NHS. That's why the waiting list is so long. Kathy Newman then says, well, hang on a second, most immigrants, you guys go on TV and on billboards and you complain that these are all young men of working age. How many young men of working age do you know that are directly putting pressure on the NHS looking for treatment? It's quite rare.
It's a serious contributor.
And this is the thing, his argument completely falls to pieces. These people can never stand up to scrutiny. If you have a long waiting list, right, that probably means you need to hire a few more doctors, a few more nurses. What do we think has been a huge challenge in terms of bringing doctors and nurses across? Because we haven't got enough in the UK, right? So what's a big challenge in terms of bringing them across from Europe? Oh, that's a tricky one.
The more millions of people that vote for us, the better. And the more people realise the betrayal on immigration that's impacting on all our services, our quality of life.
Okay, so here we are, different show, same points, right? He's got his talking points, you can just tell, right? He's got his little cards with his bullet points. These are the lines you've got to nail, Richard. And he's, same thing again, right? You can't get a GP appointment. The waiting list is really long, and that is the fault of immigrants, and we, Reform, are the only party that you can trust to start taking immigration seriously.
The betrayal on immigration, on mass immigration.
I mean, really, the whole thing about immigration, right, is the irony of it is that really what they're arguing for is more socialism, It's like if you can't get an appointment at your hospital or with your GP, actually what you need there is more funding. So you hire in more doctors and nurses that can satisfy a growth in the population, right? If you have a problem with the number of spaces in the local primary school, like, I can't fit anybody in, I'm trying to get a space for my kid, but they can't fit them in. The solution to that is to expand the state or to lobby for more funding from the Department of Education. If you have an ageing population, right, that is putting so much pressure on the NHS that the waiting list is just exploding. And so really what you need is more babies. You need more indigenous or native Brits to have children to then grow up and then work and earn money that could service that ageing population. If what you want is more British babies and less ageing population, what you need to do is socialise childcare. Make it easier and cheaper for people to have a kid instead of allowing it to progressively become an opulent fantasy, which is basically where it's at now.
So we've got the lowest growth decade for 70 years. We've got the longest recession per person for 70 years.
Yeah, but some of that's to do with Brexit, which you egged
That is
on.
evidential proof.
And you
I'm
don't
right,
think Brexit
they're
has
wrong.
a part to play in that?
None at all. The fact
None at all?
Because, Kathy, more people are coming, which proves my point.
Okay, so Brexit is great because he and Farage, the Brexit party, right? Brexit was great, except it hasn't been done properly.
This Tory government has failed to take advantage of a great Brexit opportunity.
Nothing is the fault of Brexit. Brexit is sacred. But even though it hasn't been done properly, it's still great. And that is evidenced by the fact that people still are coming here. People that he doesn't want to come here.
More people are coming, which proves my point.
Even though they are his only example of why Brexit is great, even though it wasn't implemented. Right, okay.
People want to come to the UK, but the reality is we've got lower wages.
Does it ever occur to people like this? Does anyone ever challenge him on, like, when they talk about low wages versus immigration? They're like, oh, well, what do you expect if you get 500,000 new people coming in, desperate to do low wage or minimum wage work? It's going to keep the wages low because the employers don't have to entice people in. They could just keep wages low. So high immigration equals low wage growth. Does anybody ever just stop them? Like, whoa, hang on a second, Rich. Hang on. Just give me a sec here.
We've got lower wages.
Do you think it's possible that wages are being kept low because shareholders and the C-suite of executives are making an absolute killing? Do we think is that possible? Like, have any of you seen the graph that shows how CEO pay has exploded over the last decade? Many of you seen that? Has Richard seen that? Oh, that's why we got low wages, is because all of these immigrants keep coming across the channel. Yeah.
We've got lower wages.
Like, just super quickly, right? I work in IT, okay? And contract front-end developers, contract back-end developers, since I used to do recruitment and recruit people into these roles, right? They used to earn about £500 a day, right? This was back in 2010, 2011, £500 a day. Sounds a lot, doesn't it, right? And now we're in 2024, and that same skill set still pays £500 a day. So by Richard Tice's logic, that stagnant wage growth is purely down to the number of immigrants that are coming into the UK and asylum seekers coming off of boats in the Channel. That's his logic. According to Richard Tice and people like Nigel Farage, the reason that salaries and daily rate contract, the reason that nobody's wages or salaries have gone up is because a guy called Ahmed has fled war and persecution in Iran or Afghanistan. He's made the trek all the way over to Calais. He's climbed in a dinghy, crossed over the Channel, and then with no computing skills, no degree, and he can barely speak a word of English, but somehow he and, 10,000 others have all got into the banking IT sector, and that's the reason that nobody's salaries have gone up. All right, okay, all right. Yeah, that makes sense. Cheers, Rich.
we've got lower wages.
Or do we think that maybe, is it not more likely that these big conglomerates, corporations, companies, C-suite executives, over these last few years, and this is well documented in various studies, that they are just hauling the gold in? I'd love to give you a pay rise, I would, but unfortunately, I've just checked here, and it says go fuck yourself.